If the White House and congressional Republicans cannot come to an agreement on the budget, then a package of automatic, across-the-board spending cuts known as sequestration, it goes into effect 1 month from today. And you know how you always start the new year with a diet? Well, without a deal, we are not only going to see a much slimmer federal government, but possibly much leaner household budgets as well. More than 2 million Americans may lose their unemployment benefits. The average American household could see a tax increase of about $3,500, and child nutrition programs could lose more than $500 million in funding. Democrats may benefit politically if we go off the cliff, but can ordinary Americans afford the cost of this round of negotiations? Dan, what is the case for nothing, for doing the full Godfather? We're just going off the cliff.
Look, I think there's a great case for nothing. I mean, at a station where I contribute, they're absolutely apoplectic about the economic impact. I'm not sure that there really is going to be an enormous economic impact. One of the reasons that I know this is because, I follow markets. The stock market hasn't reacted at all, even despite the fact that things have gotten pretty clear that we're going to go over the cliff, or even if they get a deal, it's going to be the most superficial 6-month can kick that's going to happen, and it's not going to really have an effect. But yet the markets are pretty strong. Economic people seem to think that we are going to go over the cliff, and maybe it's not as bad as people think. Let me tell you some of the things that are going to happen that we should welcome as liberals. $600 billion in military spending cuts. Even the Democrats don't want to touch this one. This happens automatically. You get a reversal of all the Bush tax cuts, which in fact you can put back most, if not all of them, after the start of the new year. You can bring a new bill back. You get an increase in the AMT, which hits higher income people, and maybe you can reverse some of that for people who are making less than $100,000. There's a lot of things to like about this from a liberal point of view, and the things that are bad you can sort of work around to a certain degree after the new year, after this happens. That's why I think economically, and Joy will tell you about politically, but economically, the Democrats are holding all the cards.
Yeah, and this is what feels to me, I mean, if we're going to continue with our Godfather metaphor, like this is, the Don wouldn't do it, but Michael Corleone would, right? Because it's that moment where you take the drink, the hard drink, and you go ahead and shoot the police officer, or you go, but the problem is you literally are shooting the police officer in the sense that we are killing public jobs, right? There is a way in which, if this goes into effect, and if it's not just a short game of chicken, if it's not 20 days from January 1 until the new inauguration, right? If it is at 2 months or 3 months, those kinds of cuts in education, in child nutrition, those are real, right? So maybe the markets don't mind, but it does feel like American households mind.
Right. But you have to remember that those costs are over the course of a year, right? And I totally agree with Dan. The markets have priced in the fact that there's going to be at least a post-January solution, that it's not going to happen before the end of the year. But I think even from a political standpoint, I couldn't believe when they did the sequester that they exempted Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, that the Republicans agreed to this, that they agreed to a deal whereby a Congress that can never get anything done, right, would have to get something done by a date certain, or you were going to have these tremendous defense cuts, et cetera. I couldn't believe they agreed to it. It's a great deal for Democrats. But even on the case for the cuts that would really hurt middle-class people, there's an argument that Republicans would then be under such pressure, political pressure, to redo the tax cuts, that they would also be able to get in putting back some of that spending into social programs.
I think one of the things that we're running into is the problem of rhetoric here, and the problem of the metaphor of the cliff, because it suggests that the nation's families have been high on the hill, on top of this cliff, and if we hit the edge of the road, then they'll be down. It hasn't been like that. For now years, there's been a slope.
We're already in the canyon.
Slippery slope. So I think in one sense, to kind of ride out this fiscal cliff discussion and say it's not a cliff, it's not going to happen on that day one, there's going to be some kind of resolution, but it is not as if everything is okay. Even if this cliff is averted with respect to unemployment, education, everything that you've mentioned, I think that's an important point. And frankly, on the conversation we had before, if Barack Obama cannot take a hard line now, when is he going to do it?
Yeah, right. This is the moment when he has kind of the most strength.
And I think people are waiting for him not just to fight this hard around this deal, which is a political deal, as you've both mentioned, but around the fate of the future of people in this country.
And Laura, I want to go to exactly that point, because this ad is running on cable and local TV stations in D.C., and it was organized for the Alliance on Savings and Investment. And it is about the discourse around the cliff and ordinary families. Let's listen to that real briefly here.
Our taxes are about to go up.
Well, not the taxes on our dividends, though, right? That's a big part of our retirement.
No, it's dividends, too.
We worked hard to save.
The President and Congress have got to work together to stop this dividend tax hike.
Before it's too late.
Right, so this is the kitchen table. Oh, our dividends. I mean, that's imaginary.
Your average retiree is not suffering from earning $250,000 or more,
right?
Such that the dividend investment value is going to be really hurting them and really take a hit in this deal. This is complete manipulation once again, and ignoring the fact that we have a wealth gap here.
Yeah.
And what we're talking about is changing taxes and dividends that will affect only a proportion of this country that are earning $250,000.
As soon as we come back, we're going to talk about exactly that. I'm going to bring Ari Melber in, because it's exactly this point about the big family that is President Obama, and the fact that he said we got to stay in the conversation. He's keeping everyone together. That's the Don's challenge. How he'll do it next.